In the crisp fall of 2018, Daniel Harper, a 48-year-old logistics manager at a Portland, Oregon shipping firm, felt like he'd built a life most men could only dream of. His two-story craftsman home in the Alberta Arts District, a testament to 22 years of marriage to his wife, Lauren Harper, 45, a part-time yoga instructor with a radiant smile that still turned heads. Lauren's blonde hair shimmered under the string lights of their backyard as she laughed with their neighbors at their annual harvest block party, her green eyes catching the glow of a bonfire while Daniel manned the grill, flipping applewood smoked sausages, the scent mingling with the piney air of the Pacific Northwest. Their two daughters, Emma, 24, a graphic designer in Seattle, and Chloe, 21, a junior at Oregon State, had called earlier to wish them well, their voices a reminder of the family they'd raised with love and grit. Daniel, broad-shouldered with a salt and pepper beard, had been working overtime lately, his firm navigating a merger that sent him on the road to Eugene every other week, but he was planning a surprise for their 23rd anniversary next month. Early retirement at 49, a dream he'd kept secret to sweep Lauren off her feet with a month-long trip to Hawaii. He plated the sausages, handing one to Lauren with a wink, her laughter a melody he'd never tired of, the party's warmth wrapping them in a cocoon of what felt like unshakable happiness. But beneath the glow, Daniel felt a quiet unease he couldn't name, a shadow flickering in Lauren's distracted glances at her phone, her quick excuses to step away. "Just checking on a yoga client," she'd say, her voice too bright, too rehearsed. He brushed it off as stress. She'd been teaching extra classes at the studio, her schedule packed since summer, but the way she'd linger in the bathroom after, the faint click of her phone locking, gnawed at him. At the party, he caught her whispering to their neighbor Ryan, a 40-year-old architect who'd moved in 2 years ago with his wife Megan, their friendship with the Harpers blooming over shared dinners and game nights. Ryan's hand brushed Lauren's arm as they laughed, a gesture too familiar, too long, and Daniel's stomach twisted, the sausage grease on his hands suddenly cold as he watched them under the amber glow of the fire. He forced a smile, calling, "Out, food's ready." But the unease settled deeper, a crack in the perfect life he'd built, the Portland night air now heavy with a chill he couldn't shake. By January 2019, the Portland winter had settled over Daniel Harper's craftsman home like a heavy fog, its chill seeping into the cracks of his 22-year marriage to Lauren Harper, the warmth of their harvest block party a distant memory under the grey drizzle that streaked their Alberta Arts District windows. Daniel, now 48, had been pulling 60-hour weeks at the shipping firm, the merger with a Seattle competitor dragging on, his trips to Eugene doubling as he trained a new logistics team to take over his load, each mile on I-5 a weight on his shoulders. That left him hollow by the time he trudged through the door. Lauren, 45, had always been his anchor, her yoga-toned frame a comfort he'd once craved after long days. But now she felt like a stranger, her green eyes dodging his when he tried to catch them over dinner, her laughter replaced by a clipped "I'm fine" that stung worse than the rain outside. He'd planned to retire by their 23rd anniversary in February, a surprise he'd kept close to his chest, dreaming of whisking her to Hawaii to rekindle the spark they'd lost. But the distance between them grew wider with every late night. He spent at the office, his texts unanswered, her replies a cold busy with classes that echoed in the empty house. Daniel sat at their oak dining table one evening, a plate of reheated lasagna untouched, the silence broken only by the hum of the fridge, his calloused hands tracing the grain of the wood as he wondered when they'd stopped talking about their days when her touch had turned to air. The unease from the block party gnawed at Daniel like a splinter, Lauren's whispers with Ryan replaying in his mind as he watched her slip out for evening yoga sessions more often, her gym bag slung over her shoulder, a faint whiff of lavender perfume trailing her as she kissed his cheek, too quick, too hollow. He'd tried to bridge the gap, suggesting a date night at their favorite Alberta Street pub, but Lauren brushed him off. "I'm teaching a late class, maybe next week," her voice flat as she grabbed her keys, leaving him with the dog, a greying lab named Milo, who whimpered at the door. Daniel's suspicion deepened one night when he found her phone on the counter, a notification lighting up the screen, a text from Ryan. Can't wait for tomorrow, babe. His heart slammed against his ribs, the word babe a knife twisting in his gut. But he didn't confront her, not yet. The weight of 22 years holding him back as he poured a glass of bourbon, the burn in his throat matching the fire in his chest. Lauren came home late, her hair damp from a supposed shower at the studio, and Daniel forced a smile, asking, "Good class?" She nodded, avoiding his gaze. "Yeah, just exhausting." Before disappearing upstairs, the creak of the floorboards, a hollow echo of the life they'd built, now crumbling under the weight of her lies. February 2019 brought a rare sunny day to Portland, the kind that made the Alberta Arts District glow with promise. But for Daniel Harper, 48, it was the day his world began to fracture. The crisp air, a cruel contrast to the storm brewing in his chest as he drove downtown to surprise Lauren with a gift for their 23rd anniversary. He'd taken a half-day from the shipping firm, the merger finally easing, and stopped by a boutique on Hawthorne Boulevard, a quaint shop Lauren loved for its handmade jewelry, to pick up a pair of emerald earrings that matched her green eyes, a token to rekindle the warmth he'd felt at their harvest block party months ago. The shop's bell jingled as he stepped out, the earrings tucked in a velvet box in his coat pocket, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks as he imagined. Her smile, the way she'd light up like she used to when he'd surprise her with little things. But as he crossed the street to grab a coffee at a nearby cafe, his eyes caught a flash of blonde hair in the window of the Ace Hotel across the road. Lauren, stepping out of the lobby, her yoga bag nowhere in sight, her arm linked with Ryan's. Their neighbor, his hand resting on her lower back as they laughed, her head tilting into his shoulder in a way that sliced through Daniel like a blade, the Portland sun suddenly too bright, too harsh. Daniel ducked behind a parked van, his breath shallow, the velvet box in his pocket a lead weight as he watched Lauren and Ryan hail a cab, her laughter floating across the street like a taunt, Ryan's hand brushing her cheek before she slid. Into the back seat, the cab pulling away as Daniel's world tilted, the coffee he'd planned to sip forgotten in his trembling hands. She'd told him she was teaching a noon yoga class at the studio, a lie so casual it had rolled off her tongue that morning over breakfast, her green eyes steady as she'd kissed his forehead and left, her lavender perfume lingering in the kitchen. Now that scent felt like poison, the memory of her kiss a betrayal that burned hotter than the bourbon he'd downed after finding Ryan's babe text weeks ago. Daniel stood frozen on the sidewalk, the boutique bag crumpled in his fist, the earrings a cruel irony as he replayed every moment, her late nights, her excuses, Ryan's too familiar touch at the block party, and the pieces clicked into place, a puzzle he'd been too blind to solve until now. The Ace Hotel's sleek facade, a mocking backdrop to the life he thought he knew, the Portland streets buzzing around him as his heart shattered under the weight of her deception. The Portland dusk on February 15, 2019, painted the Alberta Arts District in shades of violet, but inside Daniel Harper's craftsman home, the air was thick with unspoken tension, the emerald earrings he'd bought for Lauren still hidden in his coat pocket, their velvet box a silent accusation after what he'd seen at the Ace Hotel earlier that day. Daniel, 48, sat on their leather couch. Milo the lab curled at his feet, the dog's soft snores a stark contrast to the storm raging in his chest as he replayed Lauren stepping out of the hotel with Ryan, her laughter a dagger that had carved out his trust over 22 years of marriage. She'd lied about her yoga class, her green eyes steady that morning, and now she was late again, the clock ticking past 7 p.m., her usual class time long over, the house too quiet without her usual chatter about her day. Daniel poured a second glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the glow of the fireplace as he waited, his jaw tight, the memory of Ryan's hand on her back a loop he couldn't stop. The babe text from weeks ago now, a neon sign he couldn't ignore. When Lauren finally walked in at 7:30, her blonde hair damp, her yoga bag slung over her shoulder, she flashed a tired smile. "Sorry, class ran late. New students." But her voice wavered, her eyes darting to the floor as she kicked off her sneakers, the lavender scent of her perfume a cruel reminder of the lie she'd lived all day. Daniel forced his voice steady, setting the bourbon glass on the coffee table with a deliberate thud. "How was your day, Lauren? Anything interesting happen?" Her shoulders stiffened, but she kept her back to him, rummaging in her bag as, she mumbled, just the usual, taught a couple classes, ran some errands. The word errands hit like a punch. Errands at the Ace Hotel with Ryan? And Daniel's grip on the armrest tightened, his knuckles white as he pressed, "You see Ryan lately? I was thinking we should have him and Megan over for dinner this weekend." Lauren froze, her hand still in her bag, then turned slowly, her green eyes wide with a flicker of panic before she forced a laugh. "Ryan? No, not since the block party, I think. Been too busy. Dinner sounds nice, but maybe next week. I've got a packed schedule." Her lies stacked like bricks, each one heavier than the last, and Daniel's heart pounded as he watched her retreat to the kitchen, her steps too quick. Her excuse, "I need a shower." A flimsy shield he saw right through. He stayed on. The couch, Milo's head lifting to nudge his hand, the dog's warmth the only comfort in a house that felt like a battlefield, the bourbon bitter on his tongue as he stared at the stairs she'd climbed, the weight of her deception a noose, tightening around the life they'd built, the Portland night outside as cold as the truth he now knew he had to face. The Portland rain returned with a vengeance on February 20th, 2019, its relentless patter against the Craftsman home in Alberta Arts District, a fitting soundtrack to the storm brewing inside Daniel Harper, 48, whose suspicion of Lauren's affair with Ryan had hardened into a cold resolve after seeing them at the Ace Hotel and hearing her lies pile up like the wet leaves clogging their gutters. Daniel sat in his home office, the glow of his laptop casting shadows on the walls, Milo the lab snoring softly in the corner as he ordered a set of voice-activated audio bugs from a discreet online retailer, his fingers trembling as he typed, the emerald earring still hidden in his coat, a bitter reminder of the anniversary he'd planned to celebrate with a woman he no longer knew. He'd spent days replaying every moment. Her late nights, the babe text, Ryan's hand on her, back, and the betrayal cut deeper with each memory. His 22-year marriage, a house of cards he was determined to topple with proof, not just suspicion. The bugs arrived 2 days later in a plain brown box, small enough to fit in his palm, and Daniel spent a late night planting them while Lauren was at a supposed yoga retreat in Salem, one in the living room, another in their bedroom, a V. Third in her car under the driver's seat, and the last in her yoga bag. His hands steady but his heart racing as he set up the receiver in the basement, hidden behind a stack of old moving boxes, the red light blinking like a warning as he tested it with a whisper, "I'll find the truth." Daniel's plan was simple but ruthless. He'd pretend to go on a work trip to Eugene, leaving Lauren free to meet Ryan, her guard down, while the bugs recorded every word, every lie, every moment of her betrayal to shatter the illusion of their life in Portland. He told her over breakfast the next morning, his voice casual as he sipped black coffee. "Got a quick trip to Eugene tomorrow, back by dinner." Watching her green eyes flicker with something, relief maybe or anticipation, before she nodded, "Okay, safe drive." Her smile too bright, too forced, as she cleared her plate and left for the studio, her lavender perfume a ghost in the kitchen. That night while she slept, Daniel checked the receiver. The first recording already waiting, a phone call from the living room, Lauren's voice low. "He's gone tomorrow, Ryan. Same place, noon." Her giggle a knife in Daniel's gut as Ryan's voice crackled through, "Can't wait, babe." The confirmation was a sledgehammer, each word splintering the last of his hope, and Daniel sat in the dark basement, the rain hammering the windows above, Milo's collar jangling as the dog padded down to nudge his hand, the only warmth in a house that felt like a tomb. The truth he'd sought now a weight he wasn't sure he could bear. The Portland storm outside a mirror to the chaos tearing through his heart. On February 22nd, 2019, the Portland sky hung heavy with storm clouds, a fitting shroud for the unraveling of Daniel Harper's 22-year marriage as he sat in his truck in a Eugene parking lot, 110 miles from home, the audio receiver from the bugs he'd planted crackling with the truth he'd both dreaded and needed to hear. Daniel, 48, had left that morning under the pretense of a work trip, his voice steady as he'd kissed Lauren goodbye, her green eyes flickering with a relief she couldn't hide, her drive safe a hollow echo in the Alberta Arts District, Craftsman home they'd once filled with laughter. He'd driven just far enough to make the ruse believable, then pulled into a diner lot off I-5, the receiver plugged into his earbuds, the red light blinking as it picked up Lauren's voice. From the bug in her car, her words slicing through the static. "I'm on my way, Ryan, Ace Hotel noon like last time." Her giggle was a shard of glass in Daniel's chest, followed by Ryan's low murmur, "Missed you, babe. Room 312. The sound of a kiss through the line, a gunshot that echoed in the cab of his truck, the rain outside pounding the windshield. As his hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The emerald earrings in his glove box, a cruel reminder of the anniversary he'd never celebrate with her now. Daniel stayed in the lot for hours, the diner's neon sign flickering in the storm as he listened to the recordings, each one a nail in the coffin of his marriage, the bug in Lauren's yoga bag capturing her arrival at the Ace Hotel, her breathless, "You're early," met with Ryan's chuckle, "Couldn't wait," followed by the unmistakable sounds of intimacy, whispers, moans, the creak of a bed, that turned Daniel's stomach, his bourbon-soaked nights of suspicion, now a brutal reality that left him hollow. The rain blurring the world outside as tears blurred his vision inside. He ripped the earbuds out, his breath ragged, and slammed his fist into the dashboard, the crack of plastic a faint echo of the crack in his heart. Milo's absence in the truck, a stark reminder of the home he'd left behind, the life he'd built with Lauren now a lie exposed in the sterile glow of a hotel room he'd never see. Daniel drove back to Portland that evening, the I-5 a blur of headlights and rain, the receiver silent in his passenger seat, the recordings saved on his phone, a weapon he'd wield when the time was right, the Alberta Arts District looming dark. As he pulled into their driveway, Lauren's car already there, her lies waiting inside, the storm outside no match for the one he carried in his chest, ready to shatter their world as she'd shattered his. By late February 2019, the Portland air carried a damp chill that mirrored the icy resolve in Daniel Harper's heart. The recordings of Lauren's affair with Ryan, now a searing truth that fueled his every move as he sat in the basement of their Alberta Arts District craftsman home, the receiver's red light a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shattered his 22-year marriage. Daniel, 48, had spent days listening to the audio files, each whisper between Lauren and Ryan at the Ace Hotel, a fresh wound, her "I love how you make me feel" to Ryan, a dagger that twisted deeper than the babe text or the hotel lobby. Sighting, the sounds of their intimacy, a haunting loop that drowned out the laughter of their Harvest Block party memories. He'd contacted a divorce lawyer in downtown Portland, a sharp woman named Carla, who'd handled a colleague's case, meeting her in a sleek office on S.W. Morrison Street where he played the recordings, her nod grim as she prepared the papers. "You've got more than enough for a clean break, Daniel. Let's make it quick." He kept the emerald earrings in his desk drawer, their velvet box a relic of a love he'd planned to rekindle, now a symbol of the anniversary he'd used to confront Lauren, the date, February 28th, looming like a guillotine as he planned a dinner party at their home, a final act to expose her lies in front of those who mattered most. Daniel's silence in the house grew heavier, his interactions with Lauren reduced to curt nods and forced smiles, her green eyes searching his for a crack in his facade as she sensed the shift, her voice tentative one evening as she asked, "You okay, Dan? You've been so quiet lately." Her yoga bag slung over her shoulder, the bug inside it a silent witness to her secrets. He shrugged, stirring a pot of chili on the stove. "Just tired, work's been a lot." His lie as smooth as hers, but the air between them crackled with unspoken truths, her lavender perfume a bitter scent as she kissed his cheek. "I'm off to class, see you later," her steps quick as she left, unaware that Daniel had heard her latest call to Ryan. "He's acting weird, but I don't think he knows. Let's meet tomorrow." The next day, while Lauren was out, Daniel found a text on her phone, left carelessly on the counter, from Ryan. "I can't stop thinking about you." And a reply from Lauren, "Me too, but we need to be careful." The words were a final confirmation, the last push he needed, and Daniel sat at the kitchen table, Milo the lab nudging his hand, the dog's warmth a fleeting comfort as he finalized the guest list for the anniversary dinner, Ryan and Megan, their daughters Emma and Chloe, and a few close friends. His plan to confront Lauren now a ticking bomb, the Portland rain outside a steady drumbeat to the storm he was about to unleash, the weight of his broken heart fueling his resolve to end the charade once and for all. On February 28, 2019, the Alberta Arts District in Portland buzzed with the soft glow of string lights as Daniel Harper, 48, stood in the dining room of his craftsman home, the table set for their 23rd anniversary dinner, a cruel irony to the storm he'd planned to unleash on Lauren Harper, whose betrayal with Ryan had carved a hollow in his chest that no amount of bourbon could fill. The house smelled of roasted chicken and rosemary, a meal Daniel had prepared with care, the normalcy of the act a mask for the chaos beneath as he adjusted the emerald earrings in their velvet box, a gift he'd give Lauren before shattering her world, the same way she'd shattered his with her lies at the Ace Hotel. Guests began arriving at 6:30 p.m., their daughters Emma and Chloe, radiant with excitement to celebrate their parents, followed by friends from the block, and finally Ryan and Megan, the architect couple whose presence made Daniel's jaw clench, Ryan's handshake too firm, his smile too easy as he said, "Congrats." "Man, 23 years is something." The words a mockery as Daniel forced a nod. "Thanks, let's make it a night to remember." Lauren descended the stairs in a navy dress that hugged her yoga-toned frame, her blonde hair swept up, her green eyes catching the candlelight as she smiled at the guests, oblivious to the recordings Daniel had saved, the divorce papers Carla had prepared, and the confrontation he'd scripted, the room warm with chatter but cold with the truth he carried, the Portland night outside a silent witness to the end of their life together. As dinner unfolded, Daniel watched Lauren and Ryan like a hawk, their stolen glances across the table a silent betrayal that fueled his resolve. Her laughter at Ryan's jokes, a knife in his gut as Megan chatted innocently beside her husband, unaware of the affair that had poisoned their circle. Daniel raised his glass for a toast, his voice steady but his heart pounding. "To 23 years with the woman I thought I knew, Lauren, you've always been my everything." His words laced with a bitterness only she seemed to catch, her green eyes flickering with unease as she forced a smile. The clink of glasses a hollow sound as he set his down without drinking, a signal she couldn't miss. After dessert, blackberry pie from a local bakery, Daniel invited Ryan and Megan to stay for coffee the next morning. "I could use some advice on a project," he said, his tone casual, but his eyes locked on Lauren, who paled slightly, her fingers tightening around her wine glass as she murmured, "That sounds nice." Her voice strained, the tension between them a live wire as the guests departed, Emma and Chloe hugging their parents with love, unaware of the bomb ticking. In their father's chest, the Portland rain starting to fall as Daniel closed the door. The stage set for the final act of their marriage, the weight of his pain, a fire ready to burn their world to ash. The morning of March 1st, 2019, dawned grey and heavy in Portland. The rain a steady drumbeat against the craftsman home in Alberta Arts District as Daniel Harper, 48, stood in the living room, his heart a furnace of pain and resolve after a sleepless night following the anniversary dinner, the recordings of Lauren's affair with Ryan, now a weapon he'd wield to end their 22-year marriage once and for all. The table was set for coffee, a simple spread of bagels and cream cheese, but the air crackled with tension as Lauren, her green eyes shadowed with unease, moved stiffly around the kitchen, her navy dress from the night before replaced with a grey sweater and jeans, her blonde hair pulled back, the emerald earrings Daniel had given her glinting mockingly in the morning light. At 8:30 a.m. the doorbell rang, and Daniel opened it to Ryan and Megan, the architect couple stepping inside with hesitant smiles, Megan's "thanks for having us," warm but oblivious, Ryan's handshake weak as his eyes darted to Lauren, who paled, her coffee mug trembling in her hands as Daniel closed the door, his voice low. "Let's sit, I've got something to share." He led them to the living room, where he'd placed a small speaker on the coffee table, the divorce papers from Carla in a manila envelope beside it, his gaze hard as he pressed play, Lauren's voice filling the room from the Ace Hotel recording. "I love how you make me feel, Ryan," followed by Ryan's "missed you, babe," and the unmistakable sounds of their intimacy, a gunshot that silenced the room, the Portland rain outside a faint echo of the storm breaking within. Lauren gasped, her mug slipping from her hands to shatter on the hardwood floor, coffee splattering as she stumbled back, her green eyes wide with horror. "Daniel, please, no." Her voice a broken plea as she sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face while Ryan froze, his face ashen, stammering, Dan, I can explain. But Megan cut him off, her voice a whip as she stood. You bastard! Her hand cracking across Ryan's face with a thunderous slap, her fury a wildfire. As she turned to Lauren, You've ruined everything. 2 families for what? Daniel watched, his expression stone as Lauren sobbed, I'm so sorry, Dan. I was lonely. It didn't mean anything. Her words hollow against the weight of her betrayal, the 22 years of love and trust now ash in his mouth as he slid the divorce papers across the table. It's over, Lauren. I'm done. You'll get the house if you don't fight it, but I'm gone. He turned to Megan, handing her a USB drive. Everything's on here. Use it for your divorce if you want. His voice steady, but his hands shaking as Ryan stood. Dan, I'm sorry, man. But Daniel cut him off. Get out of my house now. I never want to see you again. Ryan and Megan left. Megan's sobs echoing down the hall, and Daniel faced Lauren, her pleas. Please let me fix this. Falling on deaf ears as he walked to the door, the Portland rain a cold curtain on the life he was leaving behind, his heart a battlefield of pain and liberation. By mid-March 2019, the Portland rain had softened into a gentle mist. A quiet backdrop to the new chapter Daniel Harper, 48, was carving out after the explosive confrontation that ended his 22-year marriage to Lauren Harper, the Alberta Arts. District craftsman home now a memory he'd left behind as he drove south to Cannon Beach, a coastal town 80 miles west, his truck packed with essentials, Milo the lab in the passenger seat, a duffel bag of clothes, and the emerald earrings. He'd never given Lauren their velvet box, a relic of a love turned to ash. Daniel had finalized the divorce terms with Carla, leaving Lauren the house and a fair settlement if she didn't contest, his only condition being no contact, a boundary he'd enforced by blocking her number after her tearful pleas in the days. Following the confrontation, her "I can change, Dan," a hollow echo he'd heard through the door as he'd walked out. The Portland rain soaking him as he'd driven away. The recordings of her affair with Ryan, a scar he'd carry, but no longer let define him. He'd rented a small beach cottage overlooking Haystack Rock, its rugged silhouette against the Pacific, a symbol of the resilience he was determined to find. The salty air a balm as he walked Milo along the shore each morning, the dogs joyful. Barks a reminder of the simple joys he'd reclaim, the pain of Lauren's betrayal slowly fading with each crashing wave. The Oregon coast a canvas for the second half of his life. Daniel kept in touch with Megan, who'd filed for divorce from Ryan after the confrontation, her voice steady on their last call. I'm starting over too, Dan. Thanks for the recordings. A shared understanding of betrayal, forging a quiet friendship as they both moved forward. Ryan a ghost neither wanted to haunt them. Daniel told his daughters Emma and Chloe, a softened version of the truth. Your mom and I grew apart, it's for the best. Sparing them the recordings but not the reality. Their tears over the phone a pang in his chest, but their love. For him unwavering as they promised to visit soon. Emma's "We'll bring clam chowder, Dad," a small light in the darkness. On a quiet evening, Daniel sat on the cottage porch, a glass of local Pinot Noir in hand. The sunset painting the ocean gold as Milo slept at his feet. The weight of 22 years lifting with each breath of sea air. The lessons of trust and self-worth. Hard-earned but clear. He'd never again let someone else's choices break him. The Oregon coast his new beginning, the Portland life with Lauren a chapter closed, its ashes scattered in the wind as he looked to a future he'd build on his own terms. The sound of the waves a promise of peace he was finally ready to claim.